The slap came out of nowhere. Not loud, not dramatic, but sharp enough to freeze an entire room. My 6-year-old son Noah stumbled backward, his tiny hand flying to his cheek, his eyes wide with confusion more than pain. And then came the words, "Don't touch anything," my mother-in-law said coldly. "You don't belong here. You're garbage, just like your mother." At my husband's funeral. Let that sink in. I'm Alina Carter. I'm 34 years old, and 3 days ago I lost my husband, Daniel, the man I thought I knew better than anyone. Now I was standing in a church, dressed in black, watching his mother humiliate our son in front of everyone we knew, and no one said a word. Not one. Why? That was the first question that hit me. The second? Why did it feel like this wasn't grief talking? Because grief is messy, emotional, chaotic. But Margaret Hale, Daniel's mother, looked calm, controlled, almost prepared. Noah clung to me, shaking now. "Mom, what did I do?" That question broke something inside me. What did he do? Nothing. He existed. That was his crime. I knelt down, pulling him close, whispering, "You did nothing. I've got you." But my voice, even I could hear, it wasn't steady. And then Margaret spoke again, not to Noah, to me. "Take your child," she said, her voice low but cutting through the room like glass, "and leave my house. You have no place here anymore." Her house? After 10 years of marriage? After everything Daniel and I built together? Something wasn't right. Something had shifted, and I hadn't seen it coming. But in that moment, standing there, holding my son, surrounded by silence, I felt it. That gut-deep warning. This wasn't about grief. This was about control. And then, like a flash, something Daniel said 3 nights before he died came rushing back to me. His voice, low, urgent. "If anything happens to me, I need you to promise me something." At the time, I thought he was overreacting. Now? Now I wasn't so sure. I stood up slowly, wiping my tears before anyone could mistake them for weakness, held Noah's hand tighter, and without another word, I turned and walked out of that church. But I didn't go far, because right outside those doors, I pulled out my phone and made one call. The kind of call that doesn't undo pain, but makes sure no one gets away with causing it. Before we continue with this video, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for updates. What kind of grandmother slaps her own grandson at his father's funeral? That question kept repeating in my head as I stood outside the church, gripping my phone so tightly my fingers hurt. But here's the part that didn't make sense. This wasn't new behavior. Margaret had always been cold, distant, calculated. From the moment Daniel introduced us, 10 years ago, she sized me up like I was a mistake he hadn't corrected yet. Too independent, too outspoken, not refined enough for her standards. And Noah? She tolerated him in public, smiled when people were watching, but in private, she barely acknowledged him. At the time, I told myself it was just her personality. Some people aren't warm, some people don't know how to love properly. But now I was starting to wonder if it was something else entirely. Because that slap wasn't just cruelty. It felt intentional. Like she had been waiting for this moment. I looked down at Noah. He had stopped crying, but his grip on my hand hadn't loosened. "Mom, why does Grandma hate me?" That question hit harder than anything Margaret had said, and I didn't have an answer. Not one that made sense. So instead, I gave him the only truth I was sure of. "She's wrong," I said quietly, "about everything." But even as I said it, my mind was racing. Because 3 nights before Daniel died, something had happened. something I didn't fully understand at the time. We were sitting in the living room, late, the house quiet, Noah already asleep. Daniel looked different, tense, distracted. "Hey, what's going on?" I asked. He hesitated, then finally said, "If anything happens to me, I need you to promise me something." I laughed a little. "That's not funny." "I'm not joking," he said. That's when I knew something was off. "Promise me you'll protect Noah, and Elena, don't trust my mother." I remember frowning. "Daniel, what are you talking about?" But he didn't explain. Not fully. He just said, "There are things you don't know yet. If something feels wrong, go to the safety deposit box. Everything is there." At the time, I thought it was stress, maybe paranoia. He had been arguing with Margaret more often lately. Now I wasn't so sure. I stood up slowly, wiping my tears before anyone could mistake them for weakness, held Noah's hand tighter, and without another word, I turned and walked out of that church. But I didn't go far, because right outside those doors, I pulled out my phone and made one call. The kind of call that doesn't undo pain, but makes sure no one gets away with causing it.
What kind of secret makes a man warn his wife about his own mother days before he dies? That question sat heavy in my chest as the phone rang. Once, twice, then, "Elena?" His voice was calm, expecting me. "Victor Lang, Daniel's lawyer." And the way he said my name, it sent a chill down my spine. "I need access to Daniel's safety deposit box," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Right now." There was a pause. Not confusion, not hesitation, recognition. "I was wondering when you'd call," Victor replied. My stomach dropped. "Wondering?" I repeated. "What do you mean?" "I'll explain when I see you," he said. "Meet me at the bank, 30 minutes. And just like that, the call ended. No questions, no sympathy, just certainty. Now, ask yourself, how many lawyers sound like that? At a time like this. By the time we got to the bank, my mind was racing faster than I could control. Noah stayed quiet beside me. Too quiet, like he could feel something shifting even if he didn't understand it. Victor was already there, standing near the entrance, a slim leather folder tucked under his arm. "Come with me," he said. No small talk. We walked in silence, to the vault. Each step felt heavier, like I was walking towards something I couldn't undo. The clerk unlocked the box and stepped away. Victor gestured for me to open it. "This is yours," he said. Inside were neatly arranged documents, property deeds, financial records, insurance papers. But one thing stood out immediately, a sealed envelope. My name on it, written in Daniel's handwriting. "For Elena. Urgent." My hands started to shake, because suddenly this wasn't just paperwork. This was a message from a man who knew he might not be there to explain it. I opened the envelope, and as my eyes moved across the first few lines, my breath caught. "Elena, if you're reading this, it means I didn't have time." Didn't have time? Time for what? My heart started pounding as I kept reading. Daniel wrote about his mother, about the pressure she'd been putting on him, the arguments, the threats, and then the part that made everything stop. "She's been trying to prove that Noah isn't my son." I froze. What? Why would she even think that? But Daniel continued. "I took a DNA test to shut it down once and for all." My hands tightened around the letter, and then came the truth. The results confirmed Noah is 100% my son. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Relief mixed with something darker. Because if the truth was that clear, then why was Margaret acting like this? And that's when I read the next line. She doesn't care about the truth. She's already telling people he isn't mine. A cold wave washed over me. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't grief. This was strategy. Margaret wasn't reacting, she was executing. I looked up at Victor, my voice barely above a whisper. She's trying to take everything, isn't she? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into the box and pulled out another document. Then he placed it in front of me and said quietly, "She's already started." She didn't just plan to humiliate us, she had already set her trap in motion. Victor placed the folder in front of me, his expression serious. I opened it slowly, my hands trembling, and the truth hit me like a punch. Margaret had filed legal papers. She was petitioning to freeze Daniel's estate, claiming Noah wasn't his son. Her goal was clear: delay everything, discredit Noah, and seize control. I felt my stomach churn. This wasn't just a slap or a cruel word. This was a calculated attack. And if left unchecked, Noah could lose everything his father had worked for, everything he had deserved. Victor leaned closer. "He made a critical mistake," he said. "Daniel anticipated this. He left everything documented, notarized, and legally binding." My eyes widened as I saw it. A notarized DNA test confirming Noah as Daniel's biological son, and alongside it, a signed amendment to Daniel's will, naming Noah as the sole heir and me as the executor. I felt a flicker of hope amidst the anger and grief. For the first time that day, I wasn't powerless. I looked down at Noah. He was clutching my hand, still quiet, but sensing something had shifted. I gave him a small, reassuring smile, though my heart was racing. Victor continued explaining the implications. If we present this now, her petition collapses, and she could face serious legal consequences for filing false claims. The weight of what he said sank in. Margaret's arrogance, her cruelty, her attempt to erase us, it had left her vulnerable. I wiped the tears from my face. I swallowed my fear. Standing outside that funeral earlier, after the humiliation and the insult, I had felt powerless. But now, armed with the truth and Daniel's foresight, I felt a surge of strength. I knew what I had to do. Not later, not tomorrow. Now. 2 hours after being thrown out of that church, after the humiliation and the insult, I walked back in. But this time, I wasn't alone. Victor walked beside me, holding the folder. Noah's grip tightened on my hand. I whispered, "Stay close to me. Watch what happens." Margaret was at the front of the room, speaking to relatives with her usual composure. She didn't see us enter first, and when she did, I saw the flicker of uncertainty cross her face. Her confidence faltered. The people who had watched silently at the funeral now turned to see what was happening. I took a deep breath. This was the moment everything changed. The room went silent the moment Victor spoke. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is the official will of Daniel Carter, finalized 1 day before his passing. It names Noah Carter as his sole heir and Elena Carter as executor." Margaret froze. Her words caught in her throat. The calculated confidence she had worn like armor all these years crumbled in an instant. Victor didn't stop there. He held up the notarized DNA test. "And here is proof that Noah is Daniel's biological son. Any claim to the contrary is false and legally baseless. Filing such claims carries penalties and potential legal consequences." Gasps spread across the room. People who had whispered behind our backs now stared gap. Margaret's face flushed, the cold composure replaced with panic. She opened her mouth to argue, but stopped because the evidence spoke louder than any words she could conjure. For the first time since Daniel's death, I felt my chest unclench. Relief washed over me, sharp and sweet. I looked down at Noah. He was staring at the documents, then at me, slowly processing the justice being delivered before his eyes. I knelt down, holding his small hand. I whispered, "See? We're safe. Everything Daniel promised, it's ours." The emotional weight lifted, replaced by clarity and strength. No fear, no doubt, no humiliation, just truth prevailing.
Within days, the court officially dismissed Margaret's petition. She faced legal consequences for attempting to challenge a documented will with false claims and was ordered to cover associated costs. Socially, her influence in the family crumbled. Relatives who had stayed quiet now quietly distanced themselves from her. She never apologized. She never tried to regain control, but she never came near us again. I looked around our home a few weeks later. Quiet. Peaceful. The tension and whispers of judgment were gone. Noah ran to his room, laughing like a child finally unburdened. I watched him, tears in my eyes, but these were tears of relief, not fear. I sat down, thinking about the last 10 years, the loss of Daniel and the fight we had endured. The pain hadn't vanished, it never will, but we had survived. We had protected what mattered most, each other and Daniel's legacy. Noah looked up at me. "Are we staying here, Mom?" "Yes," I said softly, brushing his hair back. "This is our home, our life, and nothing can take it from us." For the first time since that devastating day at the funeral, I felt complete. The injustice, the cruelty, the betrayal, they had all met their match. They tried to break us when we were at our weakest, but what they didn't know was losing everything forced me to fight back, and in the end, we didn't just survive. We won.